Check. What's good? It's Woog. We've got Oleksandr Usyk, 23 wins and 0 losses, defending his WBA, WBC, and WBO heavyweight titles against Daniel Dubois, 22 wins and 2 losses. And Daniel Dubois is going to be defending his IBF heavyweight title. So this is a battle for Undisputed. Oleksandr Usyk was obviously just undisputed. The IBF stripped him when he decided to run it back against Tyson Fury. This is his opportunity to recollect that 4th title and once again become undisputed heavyweight champion. And this is a rematch. Usyk beat Dubois last time via 9th round knockout. It was one of those, not I sent you to the canvas, but I hit you and you took a knee and stayed there. And this kind of doubled down on what Daniel Dubois' then reputation was as a, and I'm using the term loosely, quitter. And this is all relative, but between him damaging his eye against Joe Joyce in the 10th round, taking the knee, staying down, and then both times he got knocked down by Usyk was him taking a knee, and the second of those 2 times him staying down. Yeah, that was pretty damaging to Daniel Dubois' reputation. And since then, it's been nothing but redemption for Daniel Dubois' reputation. He beat Jarrell Big Baby Miller. First, he was winning most of the rounds, but then in the 10th and final round, he stopped Jarrell Big Baby Miller, becoming the first to not only beat him, but he stopped him. And then he fights Filip Hrgović, where I remember Daniel Dubois entered the ring to Michael Jackson's Bad. This was during that Queensberry versus Matchroom 5-on-5 where Queensberry swept. This was a fight where Hrgović was a substantial favorite. Daniel Dubois comes in, starts eating dozens, and I mean dozens, of clean right hands. Like, I just rewatched this one. Like, he was just tasting one right hand after another. I think it was Todd Grisham on the DAZN call on the broadcast who said something about, oh my God, it's like ringing a bell. Like, every time Filip Hrgović threw a right hand, Daniel Dubois would eat almost all of it. And I'm rewatching this with my dad, and he's like, because we're discussing Usyk versus Daniel Dubois in this rematch, and I'm talking with my dad about who you got. And, you know, I'm saying, do you have the 38-year-old all-time great Usyk, or do you have the 20-something-year-old brimming with confidence, bigger than Usyk, power puncher, Daniel Dubois coming off of knockouts of Jarrell Big Baby Miller, Filip Hrgović, and Anthony Joshua? But we're having this conversation and we're watching Hrgović versus Dubois. And again, in those first couple of rounds especially, Hrgović is just rocketing Daniel Dubois with these missiles of right hands. But Daniel Dubois just seemed like a madman. Like, he was not caring in the least, it seemed, about getting hit with these punches, and was just hell-bent on walking Hrgović down and launching his power punches with both hands, and just determined, absolutely determined to get to Filip Hrgović. It was one of those fights that you have to see it to believe it. But if Jarrell Big Baby Miller was the redemption of Daniel Dubois, Filip Hrgović was the, hey, I'm putting everybody in the heavyweight division on notice performance for Daniel Dubois. So he ends up stopping Filip Hrgović in the 8th round. It was due to a cut, but you saw that the writing was on the wall. Body language wise, Filip Hrgović seemed like he didn't even want to be there anymore. He had just gotten beaten up. He was against the ropes. He looked tired. He looked beaten. I think that cut actually saved Filip Hrgović from a really bad 9th round and 10th round. Like, I didn't think this was getting any better for Filip Hrgović. And then after that impressive, again, he was the underdog, impressive stoppage win for Daniel Dubois, he fights Anthony Joshua. And everybody's like, yeah, I know Daniel Dubois got it going on. I know he's got the momentum. I know that he's gotten better. I know that he's shed the whole reputation, that whole quitter reputation. He shed that. But this is Anthony Joshua we're talking about. And so when they get into the ring at Wembley Stadium, from the opening bell damn near, Daniel Dubois has Anthony Joshua hurt. And he's just nailing him with these right hands. And it seems like every time he hits him cleanly, Anthony Joshua is buckled once again or hitting the canvas again. Anthony Joshua got dropped like 5 times in the 5 rounds that this fight went on. And he got dropped towards the end of the 1st round by a long range looping right hand that looked like one of those punches. Like, how did you get caught with that one? Like, Daniel Dubois was almost like near the center of the ring, but he was moving towards Anthony Joshua, who was against the ropes or moving towards the ropes. He loops this right hand, just nails Anthony Joshua with it and drops Joshua. But again, Joshua looked like he was a little bit hurt in moments before that knockdown. And then after that, almost every round featured another knockdown of Anthony Joshua. It was all bad for AJ. He got demolished in there. And again, it started damn near with the opening bell. So Daniel Dubois by this point, and by the way, Daniel Dubois did get hurt against AJ in that 5th round where AJ looked like he might start mounting some sort of a rally. But as soon as that happened, and then they started exchanging again, Anthony Joshua got caught coming in with another shorter right hand, sent AJ to the canvas, this time face first, and this was the knockout. So Daniel Dubois has never been riding higher than he is right now. And now he's got a chance to redeem his fight from just less than 2 years ago against Usyk, who is, again, an all-timer. Usyk basically has 2 different Hall of Fame careers. You can't say that about too many fighters, especially in the modern eras, but Usyk was a Hall of Famer at cruiserweight, becoming undisputed. And look, not all undisputed is created equally. Like, I don't look at every undisputed champion as being a Hall of Famer. I don't know if Josh Taylor's a Hall of Famer. He's close. I don't know if he is. Jermell Charlo, I don't know if he's a Hall of Famer. If Terrence Crawford, retired after becoming undisputed at 140 at that point of his career, I don't know if he's yet a Hall of Famer, even though he would have already won a belt at lightweight and then won 4 belts at 140, beating Victor Postal. That was probably his best win at 140. I still don't know if at that point he's a Hall of Famer. But Oleksandr Usyk gave Michael Hunter his first and still only loss. He gave Krzysztof Glowacki his first and for a while only loss. He gave Maris Briedis his first and for a while only loss. He gave Murat Gassiev his first loss. Like, when you are collecting belts by beating guys of this caliber, even if it's at cruiserweight, one of the least heralded divisions traditionally, yeah, you have earned a Hall of Fame resume. Then he goes to heavyweight, beats Chaz Witherspoon and then Derek Chisora in a pretty close and rough fight for Usyk. I thought Derek Chisora really pushed Oleksandr Usyk, and that had me thinking that these other heavyweights are going to give him even more of a problem. But he goes from beating Chisora to fighting Anthony Joshua, and a lot of people forget this. Anthony Joshua was like a greater than 3-1 favorite. He was supposed to win that fight. A lot of smart people who know a lot about boxing thought that Anthony Joshua was gonna not only beat Usyk, but a lot of people had AJ stopping Usyk. But we get this revisionist, it's easy to forget things. That's why I always, when I think about past fights, I like to look at what the betting odds were. It kind of resets what the expectations were at the time, because narratives change, stories change over time. So you got to reset back to the summer of 2021. AJ was a substantial favorite over Usyk, but Usyk beats him, hurts AJ a few times throughout the fight, has him against the ropes, taking a beating by the end of the 12th round of that fight. Usyk kind of shocked the boxing world with that win over Anthony Joshua, unanimous decision, runs it back, wins a closer but somewhat still clear but close decision, split decision against AJ in the rematch. Then he fights Daniel Dubois, stops him in the 9th round, and that's the one obviously with the controversial body shot. Was it low? Was it legit? I thought that it was legit. They ruled it low. They gave Usyk a lot of time to recover. Some people think, oh, that should have been a knockout for Daniel Dubois. I'm like, slow down. If Usyk went down, this is just my belief, but I think that if Usyk went down, sees the referee counting in his face, Usyk would have found, he's got the intestinal fortitude to have beaten the 10 count. He laid down because he was given a few minutes to recover. Not to say he wasn't hurt. He was evidently really hurt. I'm just saying that that wasn't necessarily going to be Usyk just writhing in pain like Oscar De La Hoya was when he got hit to the body by Bernard Hopkins, stopping that fight. I mean, it's possible, but I think Usyk beats the 10 count if the ref, instead of giving him time, is like 4, 5. I think Usyk works his way up to his feet. But that was a very controversial moment, and Usyk was winning the fight before that, and he proceeded to whoop on Daniel Dubois after that. But look, that wasn't the only body shot that gave Usyk problems. Usyk was constantly, or at least a few times, looking to the ref like, hey man, like, what are you gonna do about this? And I'm thinking, that was such a legit body shot. Why do you keep on appealing to the ref? Are you that in distress and bothered by this Daniel Dubois occasional hard punch to the body? Because look, that whole event should embolden the now truly emboldened Daniel Dubois, who at the time probably still has some question marks. But now Daniel Dubois coming off this 3-fight knockout streak against good fighters, and then having had that moment and a few moments of success against Usyk, again, Daniel Dubois has to be super confident coming into this rematch. But Usyk did start to pepper Daniel Dubois, changing levels, everything Usyk does. The sweetest of sweet scientists, if you will. He's got the foot movement. He's got the head movement. This guy is moving his head. Like, look at the late rounds of Usyk versus Joshua 1, where Usyk is still doing this and slipping jabs in the 11th and 12th round in his mid-30s. Now he's 38. So that's always going to be an ongoing question for every Usyk fight now. Does he get old now? Does he get old now? After that Daniel Dubois fight, he beats Tyson Fury by split decision and then by unanimous decision. Both close and competitive fights, but if you would have told anybody when Usyk was storming the gates at heavyweight that he would have multiple wins against Anthony Joshua and multiple wins against Tyson Fury, nobody would believe you. Nobody saw this coming. As good as anybody thought Usyk was, we did not see this coming. And now he's got a chance to beat Daniel Dubois for a second time. So think about that. If he beats Daniel Dubois in this rematch, he would have beaten AJ twice, Tyson Fury twice, and Daniel Dubois twice. Not bad for only 8 fights at heavyweight. But yeah, Usyk, again, the sweetest of sweet scientists. He's got the level changing. He's one of those 3-dimensional movers I like to talk about, where he can move laterally. He moves up and down, changing levels, and he is cognizant of moving in and out to control range, to probe with that lead right hand as he's changing levels, looking for opportunities to shoot that left hand. Very accurate puncher. And constant movement, constant hypnosis with the lead hand, messing around with his backhand, changing levels, even some foot feints, head feints, shoulders. He's got it all when it comes to intelligent movement and constant pressure, whether he's throwing the punches or not. This is pressuring psychologically and physically because of the movement that the opponent now has to take on to react to what might or might not be an incoming punch. So Usyk is about as good as it gets when it comes to that. And it's always fun to kind of, hypothesize and to kind of build fantasy matchups. Usyk versus Joe Frazier, George Foreman, Ali. How would he do against Lennox Lewis? How would he do against a young Mike Tyson? Any matchup you could think of is fun because of what we've seen in recent years from Oleksandr Usyk. And I will never forget what was it, the 8th round against Tyson Fury, the moment, right? Because he had the turning point, or was it the 9th round? But he had the turning point because he had won the first couple of rounds, or 2 of the first 3 rounds against Fury in their first fight. But then Fury turned it around to where I thought really by the 5th, 6th round that, hey, okay, Usyk gave it all he had, but it doesn't look like this is going well for him. I really thought by the middle rounds, Fury had this one under control because the momentum, the pendulum had swung in Tyson Fury's direction. But then Usyk had some big moments in the 7th round, then going into the 8th round, had some more moments where he then bloodied Tyson Fury's nose up. And then in the next round, he drops Tyson Fury and has him wobbling from rope to rope all across the ring, stumbling all around and across the ring. Super, super dramatic scene. Probably the most dramatic scene from any fight of that year. And I don't think there's been a more dramatic scene since that. Like, including Daniel Dubois' shocking performance against Anthony Joshua. I don't think there's a moment, really, even some of those knock them out cold knockouts. I don't know if there's a moment that's more dramatic than when the middleweight, the rabbit, had Tyson Fury stumbling all over the ring. One of those unforgettable moments, right? And so he wins that fight via split decision. Then again, he wins more emphatically, more clearly in the rematch. Unanimous decision. So Oleksandr Usyk, yeah, he's on that short list. Any conversation you want to have about all-timers, you've got to mention Oleksandr Usyk. Even if you think that his resume, you're going to say he's got a limited heavyweight resume? Okay, he beat Anthony Joshua twice, beat Tyson Fury, who was before that in a lot of those, hey, how would Tyson Fury do against name your great of the past? He was in that. Is he among the greatest heavyweights of all time? Even though you could poke holes in Fury's resume as well, obviously. But all that changed. The career of Anthony Joshua, the career of Tyson Fury, the legacies of both were altered by Oleksandr Usyk and what he's done in the heavyweight division. And now he's got a chance again to beat Daniel Dubois for a second time. So look, if there was ever a time for a fighter like Daniel Dubois to beat a fighter like Oleksandr Usyk, this is the time where you've got one guy who's never been older. He's 38 now. And then you've got Daniel Dubois, who's never been as dangerous, never been as confident, as sure of himself. His work with trainer Don Charles has done wonders for his career. So again, like, I can't wait for this one, but I'm really this close to saying this is when Oleksandr Usyk gets beat. I'm very, very tempted to go with the 20-something-year-old Daniel Dubois at this stage. He's already been in the ring with Oleksandr Usyk. He knows what this pressure is going to feel like. He knows that he's going to be getting caught cleanly with some of these left hands. That's just inevitable. Like, if anything is for certain, whether you've seen Daniel Dubois in the past or these recent knockout wins, Daniel Dubois does not have a ton of head movement. Again, Filip Hrgović could not miss with that straight right hand. I'm serious. Like, this guy, like, he threw 50 of them, hit him with about 45 of them or something like that. It was bad. And no, Oleksandr Usyk doesn't have that detach you from your senses knockout power at heavyweight, but he can hurt you and he can stop you. He's throwing with some thunder. And again, it's his precision, it's his timing, it's his angles. He's just a handful. So what's going to be the difference in this one? Well, first of all, is Daniel Dubois going to commit to going to Usyk's body? We've seen people do it to varying degrees with varying degrees of success. We saw Tyson Fury commit a little bit more in that rematch to Usyk's body. I think Daniel Dubois, can afford to be more aggressive than Tyson Fury can, just chin-wise and because of how threatening Daniel Dubois' punches are. But you've got to be careful with Usyk because here's the thing. You can't be reacting to Usyk. You can't let Usyk lead the dance. That's what Daniel Dubois cannot do. He can't start becoming the spectator to Usyk's magic show. You can't do that. You're just going to be getting picked apart. You've got to start fighting on your terms. You've got to push Usyk. And I know Usyk's got a hell of cardio, but he is 38 and you can get him huffing and puffing and you can get him to slow down in moments. And again, if you could commit to the body and don't let Usyk lead, right? You're trying to walk Usyk down. You got Usyk moving and moving, and you're not just standing there when he's doing all this. You're not just reacting to every feint. No, you are taking some liberties and throwing some power shots and making Usyk react to you. If Daniel Dubois could do more of that while popping the jab out there and looking for every opportunity he can to go to that Usyk body, Daniel Dubois can win this fight. He really can. I don't see him winning it by decision unless he drops Usyk a couple of times and Usyk has enough craft to get. It's hard for me to envision Daniel Dubois winning this via decision. On the other hand, Usyk can win by decision or he could win by stoppage, knockout. I think Daniel Dubois is going to have some bounce in his step. I think he is going to be more aggressive in this rematch against Usyk. I don't think he's going to do as much waiting. I don't think he's going to wait for Usyk to pick him apart and to demonstrate his craft and then is going to just be reacting to Usyk. I don't think he'll be doing that, at least not in the first couple of rounds. I think he's going to make it a point to make Usyk work and to try to make Usyk have to react to him. I think Daniel Dubois has some good moments in this fight. I think he might even wobble Usyk. Now, if he drops Usyk, that would be something, right? But I think that he's going to win multiple rounds here. I think he's going to fight with confidence. I think there are going to be a few close rounds. I think Usyk is the 38-year-old going to pull away into the second half? Because that's the whole thing with Usyk. Regardless of how the first half of the fight goes, it's the second half where Usyk really shines and starts separating himself from the opponent on the scorecard. He did it against Chisora. He did it against AJ, even though, he had success in the first half of both of those fights as well, but he finished strong in both of those fights. And he did his best work against Fury in the second half of both of those fights. I think that he's going to start demonstrating his class against the non-head movement Daniel Dubois, and even if Daniel Dubois is showing that he can take Usyk's punches early in the fight and that he's willing to walk through anything, right? Even if he's doing that in the first half, Usyk's not going to tire out like Filip Hrgović did when Filip Hrgović basically got tired of hitting Daniel Dubois with straight right hands and then started taking a lot of shots himself. You're not going to get that out of Usyk, where you see Usyk's body language start slumping his shoulders and start looking like he really doesn't want to be there. No, I think Usyk, like he normally does, even at 38, will be putting his foot on the gas, pushing pace against Dubois. hitting him accurately, but I think that there could be scary moments with that as well. I think that we might even get something where Usyk starts putting his foot on the gas and then gets hurt. Maybe Usyk gets hurt at least once in the first half and at least once in the second half as he's applying more and more pressure against Dubois. I could see him getting hurt in the first half of the fight, getting hit in the chin. I could see him getting hurt in the second half of the fight, walking Dubois down, then walking into a shot to the body. But by and large, I don't think Daniel Dubois is going to close the show on Usyk. I think Usyk will go the distance. And at the end of the day, I think Usyk's going to win more rounds. I think Usyk's going to beat Daniel Dubois, but via decision this time. I don't think he's going to get the stoppage, but I do think he's still going to get the win. This is a dangerous fight for Usyk, man. Like, Daniel Dubois is very capable of winning this one. I would just like to see a little more head movement out of him, but look, against Usyk, what you want is almost, if there's a part of your brain that calculates risk, and you can remove that little piece of your brain and remove that piece of your brain that signals self-doubt, if you can remove those from the brain, which Daniel Dubois seems to have done in his recent fights, you're really in it with Usyk when you've got the physical attributes of Daniel Dubois. I remember early in his career, I'm like, yeah, he's got all the, the physical tools. He's got the size, he's got the power, right? He could bounce on his feet a little bit, launch power punches. But he seemed like the type of person who in high school might have been picked on by somebody half his size with a big mouth and an intimidating demeanor. Daniel Dubois seems like he might have been that kind of personality to kind of let a much smaller alpha, punk him a little bit. It seems like whatever psychological hangup he's had has been removed to where all of a sudden Daniel Dubois woke up one morning and discovered that he was Superman, right? It seems like that kind of happened with Dubois. That is what you want if you're going to be fighting Oleksandr Usyk. So I repeat, Daniel Dubois has got a real chance at winning this. I just think that even if Usyk gets hurt, which again, I expect him to, I think Daniel Dubois is going to have some really good moments, multiple. But I think Usyk is going to win more rounds at the end of the day. So again, I'm going Usyk via decision. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on this Battle for Undisputed rematch between Usyk and Daniel Dubois. Do you see this one taking on the same tone as the first time that they fought? Or do you think that the changes that Daniel Dubois has made psychologically and technically to a degree, but confidence-wise and believing in your abilities and all that, like the changes that we've seen in Daniel Dubois, is it going to make a difference against Usyk? Usyk is not AJ Ergovich. He's not these guys, right? He's moving his head all the time, moving his feet all the time. It's a different can of worms. Will it make a difference for Daniel Dubois, or are we going to get much of the same that we got a couple of years ago, even if Usyk is now 38 and not 36? Let me know your thoughts on all that in the comments. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are into the fight talk. I'm Woog. Thanks for tuning in.